the same thing as in this section we're going to do the same thing as we did in the last section, but this one time it's going to have unlike denominators, so we're going to have to make them the same. So this one has unlike denominators. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and skip the warm-up just because I think this is going to take some time. All right. So you notice that this has a 2, this is a 3, and they both have the x in common. So they both have the x in common, so you're good. That you don't need to worry about. But the 2 and 3 are not the same. You can only change the denominator by multiplication. Don't try anything else. All right, so this side needs to have the same denominator as this side. So 2 and 3, they both have a 6 in common. So I'm going to multiply this by 3 on top and bottom, and this by 2. And I always say, if you're not sure, then multiply by the other denominator, and you will always work. So 15 times 3 is 45, and you get 6x on the bottom. And then 16 times 2 is 32, and you get 6x on the bottom. So you're literally going to take 45 minus 32, and that gets 13 over 6x, and that won't simplify, so that's your answer. Okay. Number 2 is just kind of like number 1. This has a coefficient 1, and that has a coefficient of 8. So we're going to have to multiply this top and bottom by 8 to get that to match. But this has 2 a's and this has 1. So we're going to multiply by another a to get it to match. So that gets you 32a minus 7a. And on the bottom, you're going to have 8a squared. Because they have the same thing, you can simplify. And you're going to take 32 minus 7, and that gets you 25 over 8a squared, which you can't simplify. Okay, so those are monomials on the bottom, so they're pretty easy, but when you get more than one term, so a binomial or a trinomial, you're going to have to factor. So I'm just going to do what I call side work, and look at this bottom right here, because that's what I need to focus on. And I can factor out of 5 and gets me k minus 2. So they both have, I'm going to do this, they both have a k minus 2 in common. So the only thing they don't have in common is the 5. So you're going to have to multiply the right fraction by 5. And you don't need to go ahead and distribute the bottom ever. Just leave it factored. It makes it easier. That's a minus 2, sorry. And then this would be 20 and 5, to k. Oops, k. So you just take care of the top. You have k squared, it has nothing to combine with, but 16 and 20 can become negative 4. The problem is sometimes you have to simplify more, and that's what we did in the other section. So this can be factored as k minus 2 and k plus 2, because that is the difference of perfect squares. You guys have been factoring long enough that you should have that pretty much down. But k minus 2 would cancel, and you're left with k plus 2 over 5, and that's the answer. Okay, number 4. This can't be factored because it's y to the first power and it has a coefficient of 1, but this can be factored. So the question is, what can it be factored to? Well, the factors of 24 are, 1 is 8 and 3, and that equals 11. So you'd have y plus 3 and y plus 8. Well, they both would have a y plus 8. Let me rewrite this. So because they both have a y plus 8, you have to ask what don't they have in common, and it'd be the y plus 3. And you have to multiply that to the top and bottom. Now, because this is a binomial and you're multiplying, you have to distribute that. So let's go like this. So when you multiply the 7 to the y, you get 7y and 21. And I have y plus 3 and y plus 8 on the bottom, plus 35, and then all this again. I just don't feel like rewriting it. So you only have the top, and you would have 7y plus 21 plus 35, and 21 plus 35 is 56. And then you get y plus 3 and y plus 8. Unfortunately, this is not simplified all the way. At this step, kind of like the step, you always need to ask yourself, can you factor? And you can. They have a greatest common factor in common. And that greatest common factor is 7. So we divide out a 7 here and a here, which gets you y plus 8. And you should see that that y plus 8 on the bottom is going to cancel. So this is just your answer. Okay, I'm just going to do a few more examples on the back side. And just make this one video. So we're going to do 5 and 7 and 9. Actually, we're going to do 5, 7, and 8. I think those are going to be good examples. All right. So we can't factor the top. We don't need to worry about that. We only need to worry about the bottom. So you ask yourself, how can you factor 5x and 6? Well, factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3, and 2 and 3 would get you 5. So you'd have x plus 2 and x plus 3. So right here, I'm going to replace that with x plus 2 and x plus 3. We should notice that they both have an x plus 2, but this right side doesn't have that x plus 3. So you multiply the top. So you have x squared minus 5 over that x plus 2 and x plus 3 plus 1 times all this is just what you're multiplying by, so you don't really need to distribute. And now you have the same denominator. And because you have the same denominator, you can go ahead and simplify. And we're not doing this problem, so I'm just going to keep going over here. Then you're going to collect like terms. So x squared has nothing to combine with. X has nothing to combine with. But negative 5 and 3 do, and that's negative 2. Now, once you become one fraction, like I said on the other page, you have to ask yourself, can you factor? And you can factor this top. 2 is prime, so the only factor is 1 and 2. So you'd have x plus 2 and x minus 1. Now the reason it's plus 2 is because we need to get something to get this positive, but it's minus 1 because a negative times a positive is a negative. And you should notice that we have something that's going to cancel. So this would go away, and this would just be your answer. Now let's talk about something real quick. If I asked you what value or what number makes it undefined, and I mean this right here, it's whatever when the bottom equals 0. So right here, you cannot get negative 3. So x cannot equal negative 3, because if you put a negative 3 right here, you get 0. So just to let you know, if you have that, you're setting the bottom equal to 0 and solving. All right, number 7. There is no way to get the same denominator. Remember I told you can only multiply. Oops, that should be an L and that should be a T. Oh well. You can only multiply. So you can't just put, like, add 6 and that becomes negative 1. Don't even think about it. So you're going to multiply by the other denominator, kind of like what I talked about on the first page. You are multiplying this top and bottom. I'm just not writing it. Okay? So 5 gets distributed, and you get 5w minus 35. And 8 gets distributed, which gets you 8w plus 8. And on the bottom, you have w plus 1 and w minus 7. And that's because you had to multiply that to get the same denominator. Now, I wrote this in a different order, but it's the same thing. 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. So remember, multiplication order doesn't matter. You're then going to combine like terms. So 5 and 8 become 13. And then you have negative 35 and 8 added, so that becomes negative 27. And this on the bottom. And order does not matter. These do not simplify, so that's your answer. And I told you we were going to do number 8, so let me move this over here. Oops. All right. The reason I want to do number 8, I don't even know if it'll let me do that. The reason I want to do number 8 is I try to move this over, is because I want you to notice that you can only multiply. So I can't write plus 3. That doesn't work, okay? You can't add 3. You can't just add 3 and call it a day. That changes the whole fraction. You can only do this multiplication. So this is one of those situations where I say multiply by the other denominator. So you're going to multiply the right side, top and bottom, by b, which gets you b squared, and then b and b plus 3. Do not factor, okay? Do not distribute the bottom. Leave it like that because you might be able to cancel something. And you distribute the 4. So 4b plus 12. Now, we talked about this before. If you're subtracting anything, you really should put parentheses around it to make sure you do this correctly. So there's nothing to combine on the top. It's just going to be b squared minus 4b minus 12. And then I tell you, after this step, you always have to see if you can factor. And you can. Factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. 3 and 4 will not get you 4, but 2 and 6 will. So it's actually going to be b minus 6 and b plus 2. Oh, I forgot something. No, I didn't. Okay, and then b and b plus 3. So it actually doesn't simplify. That is your answer. All right, that is 9.3. Hope that helps. See you later.